But Jamal Mubarak, let me copy paste the text that we are reading from today. I've looked at this text earlier today, but I have to admit that I don't have, anything grand planned in mind to say. So I will hopefully. I know it's hard to share thoughts immediately as they come, but yeah, I'll depend on your thoughts a lot for this week. So we are reading from the 25th word. We are still at the introduction. As I'll just read Brother Yusuf's email because I thought it summarized nicely what we did last week. So he wrote, Assalamu alaikum. Last week we started searching for answers to the questions such as what is Quran, what do we mean by speech of God, in what sense is the Quran miraculous, and whether one can confirm its miraculousness without knowing the Arabic language. We especially highlighted the importance of having a definition of the Quran before we start to try and understand what it is saying to us. So again, the focus is on the Quran, particularly on the miraculousness of the Quran. And this text is, in some understanding, is an attempt to understand the Quranic verses. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Say, if all mankind and all jinn were to come together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to help and support each other. So, inshallah, even though we started reading from this a bit last week, I'm just going to begin from the start again. I'll read one or two paragraphs, and then the text is a little bit dense, even though that's not exactly the right word, and that it's very packed in terms of the definition it gives. So I think we should do some unpacking and see what we can take from it. So, introduction. The introduction consists of 3 parts. First part, what is the Quran? How is it defined? The answer, as is explained in the 19th word and proved in other words, the Quran is the pre-eternal translator of the mighty book of the universe, the post-eternal interpreter of the various tongues reciting the verses of creation, the commentator of the book of the worlds of the seen and the unseen, the revealer of the treasuries of the divine names hidden in the heavens and on the earth, the key to the truths concealed beneath the lines of events, the tongue of the unseen world and the manifest world, the treasury of the post-eternal favors of the most merciful, and of the pre-eternal addresses of the most holy, which come from the world of the unseen beyond the veil of this manifest world. It is the sun, foundation, and plan of the spiritual world of Islam, the sacred map of the worlds of the hereafter, the expounding word, lucid exposition, decisive proof, and clear interpreter of the divine essence, attributes, names, and functions. It is the instructor of the world of humanity, the light and water of Islam, the macroanthropos, the true wisdom of mankind, and the true guide and leader urging humanity to prosperity and happiness. It is both a book of law and a book of prayer and a book of wisdom and a book of worship and a book of command and summons and a book of invocation and a book of thought and a unique comprehensive sacred book comprising many books to which recourse may be had for all the needs of all mankind. It is a revealed scripture resembling a sacred library which offers treatises suitable for all the various ways and different paths of all the saints, and the veracious ones, and the wise and the learned, which is appropriate for the illuminations of each way, and enlightens it, and is suitable for the course of each path, and depicts it. Okay. Let me pause there because, I mean, in some sense of the word, this seems to be a very hefty and comprehensive, if you will, definition of the Quran. But then what else would I expect if you know, I'm approaching a book or a text that is claiming to be the word of my creator? Let me, you know, there's, I think, again, a lot here. And I don't want to rush through this paragraph. I want to try to understand, you know, each phrasing, each definition that he offers, because he offers multiple definitions. And I want to try to understand them, especially in terms of what they offer to my personal relationship with the Quran and my, you know, just my life right now as I live in. So the first definition it's giving is that, I mean, in the first definition it gives, it also introduces another book, right, which it calls Book of the Universe. The Quran is the pre-eternal translator of the mighty book of the universe. And I think, you know, Nursi has to say this, because if you say that the Quran is a translator, then it has to be a translator of something, of another thing that needs translation. And, you know, it makes me ask, okay, it's saying that it's the Quran, the scripture, this word of God is a translator of the universe. And what is the universe? What is my universe? My universe is my experiences, my interactions. What I did today is my universe, right? What I saw today, what I heard today, what I spoke today, you know, that is my universe as far as I'm concerned right now. And so I guess what I'm thinking as I read this is, does this universe of mine need a translation? You know, so what did I do today? I had, let's say, an online seminar in the morning, and I had to talk about certain topics with a couple of other people and do some small talk, and then maybe I ate some food, watched something, walked around. Do these experiences need translation? You know, like what does it mean to translate these experiences? Attending a seminar is just attending a seminar. Walking around outside is just walking around. Does this require translation? And, you know, the nature of a translation, I guess, is something that makes comprehensible another thing that is not comprehensible to me. Something that is foreign to me, understandable, communicable. And so I'm asking the question of, am I in need of comprehension of the things that I underwent today? Do I have questions about them? What kind of meaning do I expect to extract from them? And as Brother Yusuf writes in the chat box, how about what am I doing in grad school? Yeah, that's the question I ask myself every hour of every day. But this is a public forum, so I won't divulge it much more than that. 5 years? Oh, that's nice. I think 5 years is the minimum. Anyways, but yeah. But you know, I was actually thinking to myself today that these Friday discussions, like they were the places I went to when I wanted to decompress from a long week. Alhamdulillah, and they were a means of that. So I leave behind discussions of grad school right now, but then, we're talking about my life and we're talking about my universe, so how can I really leave them behind? And how do I make comprehensible the emotions and the feelings that perhaps the question of what am I doing in grad school invokes in me? How do I make sense of my fears and vulnerabilities, my anxieties, and my all the forms of inquiries I have, maybe the happinesses that I have, maybe something went well, maybe something went bad. How do I make sense of it? I think the first step I have to ask is, do I have the need to make sense of something? Because if I find things as already comprehensible, if I find things as already clear and not needing any translation, then I don't think I need the Quran. I don't need a translator of my universe. But at least for myself, if I ask Aisha Nur, yes, I need to understand what it is that I am undergoing. I need to understand what is it that I'm experiencing? What is the meaning of everything that I am encountering? If I feel relief right now that the week is over, which I do, I feel a lot of relief, and what is the meaning of that relief? And if I don't feel like thinking about next week and the things I must do for next week, what does that mean? What does that fear or avoidance mean to me? I require a sort of translation of these very things, and maybe these can appear minute, but they are my universe, right? They are the things that occupy me, and maybe your universe is different. And so here it's saying that the Quran is a translator of this, of everything that I'm undergoing. And I wonder, can this be so? How do I make this so? And here I'm not even focusing on, the word pre-eternal, which I feel like we might have talked about like some maybe a year ago or some long time ago, but I'm having questions again on how do I understand pre-eternal translator and post-eternal interpreter. Like these are difficult concepts for me to comprehend, at least. But even in just like this first definition, this Quran is being proposed to me as a sort of resolver of the conflicts that I experience, as a sort of cure for the problems that I undergo in my universe. And in some ways it's like, well, that seems too good to be true. How can I really make use of that? I open the Quran, I read some verses, and even if I'm trying to apply it to my life, it seems kind of difficult, and I'm not exactly sure of how to benefit from it. Like how do I make this text, this scripture, such a elevated, I don't want to say tool, but such an elevated, how do I make use of its elevated status of being this translator of my universe? And the next line, it's saying the post-eternal interpreter of the various tongues reciting the verses of creation. So now there are tongues apparently reciting the and it's beautiful, reciting the verses of creation. The commentator of the book of the worlds of the seen and the unseen, the revealer of the treasuries of the divine names hidden in the heavens and the earth. So I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about how we should structure this, whether it's a good idea to focus one by one on each definition. But let me pause here and see if anyone has anything to say in terms of like what I've said so far in this first definition of being the pre-eternal translator of the mighty book of the universe. So Brother Yusuf says there is a theme of book. What is a book? What does a book imply? Is there a book? Yeah, that's a good question. If you want to say more on that, or if someone else wants to respond, I'll let you respond. I'm not going to respond to it. Someone else can. So I'm going to pause and see if anyone wants to say something.
Assalamualaikum. What was the question again? Sorry.
So the question is, it's in the chat box. Brother Yusuf wrote, there's a theme of a book in this text. What book? What book? What does a book imply? Is there a book? That's the question. So and Atik, you wrote, a book is authored. Do you want to say more on that? No? Okay. But yeah, a book is authored. A book has an author. A book necessitates an author, right? And an author is this active agent that imbues a book with meaning. So I'll let Sohail go, and then Brother Yusuf, you can join him right after.
Well, I don't guess nobody else wanted to answer the question, but at least what I understand from a book is that one, there's sort of an acknowledgement by the self or the individual or myself that it is a book. So I kind of have to have some idea or notion or recognition that things are meaningful, and that like if given a book in front of me, there's something meaningful in there. Otherwise, if I don't acknowledge that, then it's not really a book to me. So there's one thing, and then not only that it's meaningful is, but that I can understand that meaning. So it's understandable, comprehensible, and in that same vein, that I can understand meaning. I recognize that there's meaning, and I can comprehend it from this book, knowing that, or it being obvious that this book isn't the source of its own meaning, but it sort of, as you mentioned, it implicitly acknowledges an author that's beyond the book's nature. But I'm communicating with that author through that book as I'm reading it. So it's an active, active process, active communication. And I think the last thing I would add is that the way that meaning, the meaning of the author, or the intention or meaning, intended message of the author is conveyed is through, shapes, sound, letters. So there's some sort of vehicle that transfers that meaning. So in a book, would be obviously letters, words, sentences, and then if you make the analogy to like the manifest book or to the universe, material objects, so to speak.
So yeah, I guess Jazakallah khair for everyone who contributed. Yeah, for a book, definitely this is a metaphor the author is using for the existence, is likening it to a book. A book implies, if I say something, a book, but what comes with that word is the concept of an author, the concept of message of the author, and also the author thinking about me in mind, so that he is delivering a message to me, meaning the content of the book should be addressing me. I should be able to understand it somehow. So there's this purpose of education in there, purpose of communication in there. These are all coming with the word book. So then what's the next question is the universe a book? So, because if it is, then the author of this book is communicating some message through this medium. And if I practically ask the question, do I take this coronavirus pandemic as a chapter in this book, for instance? If I do so, what am I trying to do to understand from that chapter? Am I just like this primary school first year school child who's just looking at the pictures? Or what is it? Am I trying to make sense of it? If I do, how am I going to make sense of it either? Because it's like a few days ago, we were talking to an older brother, quite older. I guess you all know him. So, and he was saying, what is the message behind this pandemic? He said, it's quite challenging for me to make sense of it. And when I think about it, yeah, I don't have a clear-cut answer or a convincing, I mean, forget about it being that much of a clear-cut, but somewhat of a convincing answer for myself. Oh, this is the message that I get out of this. So if this is the case, if although this is the book, if it's a book, the existence, still it's very cryptic. I'm not able to understand many of the things that are happening. And most of the time, I'm not even seeking for a meaning in it anyways. But even when I try to understand things, it's been quite challenging to make sense of things. So what this generally leads me to is either saying that, well, it's just a random virus, but why are you searching for a meaning in there? Which can eventually lead me to say that there's no book. It's just, it happens. Or what's the alternative? How am I going to make sense of it?
Thank you both. So there seems to be at least three parts to the criteria, right? One, that a book must have meaning, and that meaning must be comprehensible or accessible to me, and that a book must be authored, and that the meaning it has, which is accessible to me, is not produced by the book, you know. And as Sohail had also mentioned, by engaging with that book, I am also engaging in communication with the author of it, and engaging in a sort of active communication with it. Yeah. So thank you for that. And I think, you know, that it's very significant that the author does call the universe a book, because that changes the entire sort of paradigm with which I interact with this universe. Because then if I accept the universe as a book, then it must necessarily be full of meaning. And how is that meaning going to be accessible to me? Now there's something that needs to be translated to me, because I don't have the sort of framework or sort of epistemology, sort of understanding of how to access that meaning immediately by myself, even if I must know that there must be meaning there. I require a certain worldview or a certain approach that can help me engage with that meaning, and thus communicate with the source of that meaning as well. I still want to ask again, this may seem like a trivial question perhaps, but Like, how do you guys understand pre-eternal translator as well as like the later statement of post-eternal? Like, can someone give a perhaps clear example of how to approach that? And Suhail, I see that you raised your hand. It may not be about the question I asked, but please go ahead.
Yeah, it wasn't, but I guess, well, two things. I guess you brought up the point, and then you mentioned it about, how do you make sense of a book, and to be precise, the book of the universe, like what's the criterion or to determine what the author's intended message is. I to that, unless like you can, I don't want to like bring in like religious terminology here, but unless like you can have like, you can meet the author, so to speak. It's really, fundamentally subjective to you. But what I would say is, if there is a way to, so to speak, as Nursi mentions, to translate the book of the universe from that same author who's written both books, then I guess that would be the only criterion you would have to determine what the intended message is. Otherwise, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do so. And I think that's, speaks to the necessity of messengership and revelation. And then since you mentioned the question about, at least from what I understand from pre and post eternal, is that, I can read a book, whether it was written 100 years ago or 200 years, like Shakespeare. Anybody can read it after it was written and take something out of it, because what he's writing is sort of universal. There's some sort of universal motifs or ideas, symbols that sort of transcend time itself. And to me, that's kind of what I understand from pre and post eternal translator, and that you can take the Quran and see how it translates the book of the universe, and it's irrespective of the time you're translating it or making sense of the universe. You can do it in whomever you are and wherever and whenever you exist.
Thank you so much, Suhail. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think the point you made about how does one try to understand the author's intended message? And I don't know if you can. That's what English departments exist for, right? But I don't think it makes the meaning that you extract from it any less true. Let me think about that a little further. But it's an interesting question, because in some circles that I'm in, it's all about the death of the author. Like, when you approach a text, the author is dead. You don't bring the author into question, because you can't. The author is not important at all, as weird as that may sound, and that's not the case here, of course. But at the same time, I can't really try to approach it from the author's perspective, because that perspective is just not accessible to me. Intention, perspective, mindset are not accessible to me. But insofar as I'm concerned, insofar as I have the experiences that I do that are being created for me, I can still try to extract some meaning from it, with the guidance of the translator. And here, there are some comments and questions in the chat box. Nazmal asks, does a book have to be interpreted in only one way to have meaning? No, of course it doesn't. I think there's, literally, again, the Department of English exists for this reason. There are so many different interpretations. There are so many different ways to attain meaning from a book. And I think if the author of a book is one that is also, the disposer of all affairs, the creator of this universe, then it's probably layers upon layers of meaning, and some of which may be accessible to me at one point, particular to the context of my life, and some at another point, particular to the other context of my life. And he asks further, isn't the purpose of a messenger to clarify the intended message? I think we can understand a message if the author gives us the tools to interpret his work. Nazma, would you like to read your comments and also maybe expound on them just a little bit so I don't do an injustice to what you are saying and asking? If yes, you can click the yes button. If no, you can click the X button. I understand if like your setting might not be suitable to speaking, but if you can speak, the mic is yours. Okay, you're driving, no problem. Okay, hopefully you shouldn't text either then. As much as I do want active participation, can't endorse that. So the last comments you had written were, if the author intended multiple meanings, then multiple meanings are valid. But if they did not, then multiple meanings are illusory. And then Sohail writes, the Quran and the universe is a bilingual reader. Sohail, do you want to expound on that actually? Because you threw a phrase there.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the earlier point, I think practically most people would say that there is some sort of meaningful aspect to the universe. Now, you can make whatever you want to, in that, well, things happen randomly, it's all chance, or anything I experience or anything I feel doesn't really have any sort of purpose or meaning beyond the moment I experience it. So, I may be depressed that there is a pandemic and I can't meet people, or I'm distancing, or I can't communicate with people, there's no human interaction. But beyond that, it doesn't, so I recognize that there's something there, but nothing beyond that. And so there's a recognition that there's a language there. And it's like if I try to learn a new language, and I already understand another language like English, and I'm trying to learn, let's say, Turkish. If there is a Turkish text translated into English, it would obviously make it much more easier to understand what's being written in that language. So not that I couldn't understand it, but things become obvious and clear when that happens.
Thank you. Yeah, does anyone else want to say anything on this topic that we are right now at? Nazmo, you can speak if you're actually available. Please don't overexert yourself if you are driving and whatnot.
Yeah, no problem. This is a straight route. Yeah, what I meant by my comments was that when you mentioned English departments, it's usually the case that people are trying to, I guess, fish for meaning from something that the author didn't intend a lot of meaning for, right? So the author might write, let's say, a lullaby for their child or whatever. And now I don't think it's worth doing a PhD on that, because the author clearly intended it as a lullaby and really nothing more, right? But when it comes to there could be another type of author who intended multiple meanings in their work. So they wrote a book, but they clarify within the book itself that it can be interpreted in different ways, that there are certain rules to interpret the book, and so on. So in that case, I think, you know, we can get a better understanding of the intentions of the author in that case. So I don't think it's completely subjective in that sense. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, even though I would say that regardless of whether it's worth doing a PhD on or not, and regardless of whether, you know, the writer of that lullaby intended or not, there is meaning there that is being experienced by the reader. And even if it wasn't in this example intended by the author, I don't think that makes the existence of that meaning any less valuable. You know, at least for the person experiencing it. You know, it's like seeing a painting, regardless of whatever the painter might have initially thought. If it makes me experience and feel things, then there is value in and of that interaction. But again, I don't know if it's a fruitful endeavor to try and see what the author's intention is, but certainly I can have guiding tools. So in this case, again, we have as our topic the Quran as being the translator of this book of the universe. So it's giving me, you know, I don't want to. I don't want to like use any sort of fancy language or anything, but it's giving me a sort of epistemic framework through which I can try to understand the meaning behind my experiences with things and objects and people and anything really. But let me pause there, Brother Yusuf, please go ahead.
So for understanding the purpose of the author, so today I was just attempting to collect some information about a grant. There was a description written somewhere, but I want to apply. There's description, but description is a little bit cryptic for me because this is going to be the first time I'm going to just apply for such a thing. So I contacted someone trying to understand what they mean by this word. Is there going to be a certain structure, or what are the questions they are really looking for? Okay, yeah, there's this description, but I don't want to understand it wrong, because I know that they are asking for something specific. This is why they have written this description. But I don't want risk, because you apply once a year, twice a year. You don't want to waste your lifetime, whatever. So in this sense, actually, when I was sending that email, I said, are they expecting such and such sort of a structure, or are they looking for a freestyle? And the person that replied said that I don't think they would want to waste their time trying to understand your freestyle. So you better go with that standard style of such and such and such. And within that framework, explain what you want to explain. So in this sense, yes, I mean, as long as there is a message and there is an intended purpose, of course, with the message, I am interested in trying to understand what was meant and what is not meant. So I don't know, at least in my day-to-day life, this is how I am approaching somebody's words. So when, for example, Nazmul made a comment, we go and ask, Nazmul, I don't want to make an injustice to what you have written in there. Would you like to explain us what you mean? So I guess since the language is not like human language, is not that much, deterministic. It's not pointing to, it's not a formal language. It's not meaning to only single meaning. It's not mapping to a single meaning. There's this multitude of meanings possible in any human word. So we are asking for Nazmul to, for example, draw some further boundaries around his words. so that we can better understand or we can narrow down the gray area that he is expounding his meanings. So I guess it applies to anything in life. This is how I briefly think about it, but feel free to point to the wrong aspect, please.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. Would anyone else like to add or respond to that? I mean, I don't have anything further to add for now. If not, let's look at this second. Brother Birkan, would you like to go?
Oh, yes, please. So I couldn't raise my hand, sorry. Just one thing maybe to add. So I feel like sometimes we go too maybe unnecessarily into the weeds with analogies.
Brother Birkan, you're a little far from the mic. You started off good, but then you went a little. Your voice went a little far.
Just a second. Is it any good now or?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So I guess we shouldn't lose the sense that we are dealing with an analogy here. And as like every analogy is there just to give us an idea, an initial impression, and nothing more. So with the book analogy, so whether should we understand the intention of the author, try to, you know, make sense his or her intention or not. So if you are talking about a real book, and if you are trying to study the text, for instance, in your department, in psychology department, somebody comes and tells you that you shouldn't, I'm just, you know, as an example, you shouldn't care about the author's feeling, author's, you know, the inner thoughts, because you have the text and you should study text. I would say, yes, you are right. You know, whatever she or he meant should be in the text, and I should be fine with studying the text. Or with the grant application, if grant application is written well, the text should be enough. I don't have to think about the person who wrote this application description. And usually we don't care, like we don't care whether it is written by the scientist or a grant manager or just a cleric working in the office. Doesn't matter for us. If the description is good enough, this is good enough, and we study description. We study the text, not the author. We don't even know who is the author. But this is true for a book. And for the purpose of, you know, our example, in the context of our example, that you are studying a text which is written to give you, you know, some instructions. And author here, Nursi, he's saying that the book of universe. Oh, am I going to apply the same thing here? Am I going to take the universe as the text that I take, you know, a grant description, or a text of a book that I study in classroom? Is it the same thing? It's just an analogy. The author here is trying to say that it is meaningful. It can be read. But at the same time, we know that the same author use another analogy, some other places, like speech, he says. Wow, everything is changed. You cannot apply anything you know about the book to the speech, except the fact that both are directed to you to give you some idea, some explanation, some meaning. They both purposeful, but the way you analyze text is different than the way you analyze speech, right? So So for instance, with speech, you have tonation. How am I going to apply this to the text? They are just analogies. You cannot do that. So what I'm trying to say is that taking universe as a book doesn't mean that you should treat it as you treat your regular book. It doesn't mean that you should try to find in the universe like a back cover which will give you a description of the author. So this is what you expect from the real book. So should we be looking for a back cover in the universe? So book analogy is there to emphasize that it is meaningful, it can be read, it is written, meaning it's not random, there's an author behind it, so on and so forth. Am I going to try to find about the author? This is about the reality now, not the analogy. So what Ayşenur said at the very beginning was too important, that the universe is what I experience. So when we say universe, we usually take it as, the things around us. Like the Quran is the interpreter of the universe. Oh, it will tell me about the secrets of the sun. It will tell me about the secrets of, scientific discoveries that, out there, or the scientific truths that, we will discover later. Universe is about, the rocks, the trees, sun, earth, the particles, whatever. But Ayşenur said, no, universe is not that. Take everything that you count and reflect them into my mind, into my life, and this is the universe that author mentions. Universe as I experience has an author, is a book. Things getting really interesting, right? My experiences, my feelings, my understanding, the way I interact with the things are written. And again, using other analogies that author uses, speech. It is spoken. And it is spoken to me because I'm the one who experienced them. Now you have an urge to know about the author. No matter how other people tell you that, oh, no, you shouldn't, concerned about the author, you should just concentrate on the text. It doesn't apply to the book, which is your life, which is written constantly. It doesn't apply to you now, apply to this situation now. Your biggest concern is to know about the author of your life. There is nothing more valuable than this. So one thing, again, we shouldn't forget that when we say universe, we're talking about our lives. It's not about how sun, attracts other masses. The gravitational force between A and B. How leaves comes out of trees and how they produce energy. It is not about that. It is how I am amazed with the fact that the leaves comes out of the trees and produce energy. It is about how this affects my life, how I benefit from it. This is my universe. An author says your universe is full of mysteries, that you don't know what's going on. So you need an interpretation for that. So if somebody, for instance, comes and tells me that there's a 600 pages of book, which explains you how to match, how to light matches. I give you a box of matches and then give you a book of 600 pages and tell you that this is the, the manual of matches. You would just laugh and throw away the book, right? You already know how to use matches. You don't need any interpretation. But author claims here that with your life, you need such an interpretation. You need a book of 600 pages and not even static. Every time you will open the book, it will tell you something else, pre-eternal, post-eternal. It will not be bounded by time. It will cover your past, it will cover your future. Whatever thing you think about past, whatever you think about the future, it will cover it. It will not be bounded by time. Every time you will open it, it will tell you something else about your current situation. And this is what you need, author says. If you think your life is a box of matches, you don't need a manual, you don't need an interpreter. But if you take your life serious and say that, you know what, my life is full of perplexities, full of mysteries, full of, fill the gap. And I need an interpreter. And do you know what? Beyond that, I want to know who's giving me this life, who's speaking to me. The interpretation of not the things that I see, also the things that I don't see, things that are behind the curtain. Commentator of the book of the words of the seen and unseen. I need such a book. I need to know about the author of this book because the book is my life. It is written in front of me. I am written. So book clubs in our departments do not translate directly to this example. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much for that. Very relevant reminder, and as well as emphasizing the fact that, I have to focus in on my world as I encounter it. Okay. I'm enjoying this discussion so far, alhamdulillah, with all of your interactions and participations. So this, I'm going to move on. This second definition that he gives us is in conjunction with the first one, of course. It says the post-eternal interpreter of the various tongues reciting the verses of creation. So now we have, we had the book of the universe, and within that universe, there are things with tongues, things that are speaking. There is speech. And again, I ask myself, what are the things speaking to me? So right now, for example, maybe this is like sort of actually, no, I don't have to qualify it. Like right now, outside the window, I guess since it's 7:34, like there's a very, very, very calming, very nice, warm toned, like almost sunsetty scenery. And I see like the silhouette of a tree, and it's quite nice. Like there's some pinkish hues. And I see like the silhouettes of like some of my plants on the windowsill against it. And it's so pleasing to my eye. I really enjoy it. How is this? What are the various tongues reciting the verses of creation for me here? And how, through this experience, does the Quran in this very moment interpret this experience for me, this relationship I have with this view, this imagery, this scenery for me? There are there's a tongue of the sunset, there's a tongue of the sky, there's a tongue of the relationship that I have with this view. And here again, in addition to what we've discussed about it being the translator, it is also interpreting this moment for me. That's how I am trying to understand it. So I don't know if you guys have anything other than that to add. And he continues on to say, the commentator, the Quran is the commentator of the book of the worlds of the seen and the unseen. So now we had the book of the universe, and now he's sort of bifurcating. He's saying that there's a book of the worlds of the seen and the unseen. And how I understand this, my take on it, and I'll be interested in your take on it, is that there is, well, I mean, world of the seen seems pretty straightforward. There's the world, there is, the sunset that I see right now, the orange and the red and the pink and the blue all mixed in this this canvas of the sky. I see that, and the Quran translates it, interprets it, and comments on that for me. And the world of the unseen is perhaps, I can't, there isn't a tangible physical meaning for me to grasp with my hands, but this is a meaningful experience for me, the qualities that this experience manifests for me, that is a world in and of itself. If we think of, the Matrix, I guess, the world of the unseen is almost like those lines of zeros and ones of code, a binary just streaming down. I mean, I can access it by reflecting on this experience, by looking, I guess, to the Quran and asking it, what does this bring to me? What role does this experience bring to me as a human being? Why is it that I'm able to have such feelings of maybe happiness or joy or peace or contentment when I look at the sky like this? I want to understand it, and I want to know how I can make this moment that I experience with it go beyond the very temporary, in maybe less than 15 minutes, it's going to be pitch black. And there's always this sense of sorrow or grief I experience right before the day ends, because I really like light, and I like the room that I'm being in to be filled with light. I really can't stand gloomy rooms or rooms with like curtains closed. Like I just need like lots of rays of sunshine. And so it's almost like I feel the sense of sorrow, or the sort of sense of melancholy when that last light of the day is going to disappear, and I have to turn on the lamps or the light, in the electric light in the room, which definitely does not give me the same experience. And so I want to know, how do I make the joy and the happiness that I feel when I look out the window something that goes beyond the temporal transience, the limitedness of this very physical occurrence. So again, I am understanding the world of the seen as just, I don't know, things that are accessible to my senses, to my perception, and the world of the unseen as the meaning, the meaningfulness that I can take from this experience. How the qualities that I experience point to their source, point to their creator, and say that we are not the source of our own beauty, and the contentment that you feel is not necessarily something that we are creating, but something that is being given for this relationship. The clouds and the sky didn't choose to have this relationship with me. I didn't choose to have this relationship, but yet here we are. And I think just as like a beautiful, like even the order of the definitions here, I think are very intentional, or at least seem very intentional to me. It says, the revealer of the treasuries of the divine names hidden in the heavens and on the earth. And in a sense, my initial reaction is, well, I mean, are they really hidden? Right? When I can experience so much, is it really hidden, or is it just kind of in plain view, but I have to have the correct key, correct key to unlock the sort of names and qualities and meaning that's embedded there. And let the Quran reveal that for me. Would anyone want to say anything? I hate saying would anyone want to say anything. I know it's always better to kind of pose some questions that are more specific to bring out comments, but truth be told, I can't really conjure them up very artificially right now. But if you have any reflections or thoughts at this part of the text that you want to share, I'm open to hearing them. These are just my sort of initial responses to what the text is saying, but I mean, there can be other understandings of what exactly does it mean for the Quran to be a commentator, the book of the worlds of the seen and the unseen. How do we understand that? And what does it mean for them to be books as well? What does it mean to be the revealer of the treasuries of, there are all these definitions being given, and one can say imposed onto the Quran. How can we confirm these? How can we really experience them in our own lives? I feel like someone's going to ban the word experience by the number of times I keep repeating it, but I mean that's really just the heart of the matter for me. I'm just looking on. I'll continue on, but feel free to interrupt me. It says the key to the truths concealed beneath the lines of events. To the truths. So is it, if the truth is concealed, is then of course the question that comes about is that which I initially encounter somehow false, or somehow not encompassing truth itself? What does that mean? Yeah. So let me pause here, because I don't want to mindlessly ramble on either. And no rush. If you're thinking, continue thinking. We can think together. Silence is not a bad thing. Let me pause for a moment. All right. So far we said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fifth definition it gave us was the Quran is the key to the truths concealed beneath the lines of events. And I guess one way to approach it is that the lines of the events, the contours of such things, they point to transience, and they point to the fact that they're going to disappear already. That orangeness that I was in, pinkish that I was talking about, it's gone. Now the clouds are much darker. It's already gone, but perhaps the truth of it, or the key, the way in which the Quran can be a key to the truth of it, is that, although, albeit this event is temporary, whatever or whomever is the source of that event is not, by virtue of not being the nature of this universe. The Quran is the tongue of the unseen world in the manifest world. The Quran is the tongue of the unseen world in the manifest world. In some ways, that makes me think of it as a sort of microphone to the unseen world, as a microphone or as a sort of spotlight or a flashlight to the meaningful side of things, you know? The Quran acts as this sort of illuminating flashlight that sort of like invisible pens back in the day, and like you could write with them, and then if there was something that you did, but once you could write a letter with an invisible pen, or maybe you see these in spy movies, right? Like there's a blank letter and it's written with an invisible pen, but then when you like amount of reference points that all say that, you know, we have a creator and we have a merciful designer and maker. The treasury of the post-eternal favors of the most merciful and of the pre-eternal addresses of the most holy, which come from the world of the unseen beyond the veil of this manifest world. So I didn't quite get that. The treasury. So the Quran is the treasury, a source of treasure of the post-eternal, I'll say timeless favors of the most merciful and of the timeless addresses of the most holy, which come from the world of the unseen beyond the veil of this manifest world. So at least in terms of the first phrase, let me take it phrase by phrase. The treasury of the post-eternal favors of the most merciful. I mean, if I can think of it in this way, if the Quran is this translator, is this interpreter, is this commentator, is this key, is this UV light, this flashlight, this illuminator of meaning and of understanding and of comprehension that makes everything in the world friendlier to me, makes everything in the world illuminated to me, then it is genuinely a treasury. It is this invaluable, beautiful, wonderful mercy to me, because here I am in this world, and you know, I feel alone in terms of how I'm supposed to understand things and how I make sense of things. And you know, if I keep busy enough, I don't even have to think about these matters at all. But maybe that's one situation of you know, the pandemic, is that we are forced, well, some of us, we are forced into reflecting on ourselves and being isolated, and it's difficult being isolated. I was watching this TV show, it's just like a TV show that I watch sometimes just to numb my brain. But in it, one of the characters, it's like a lighthearted comedy, and one of the characters was saying, he had this like new security guard position at a job at a workplace, and he was so bored because there's nothing going on, and he said, I'm so bored that I almost started thinking about what is the purpose of my life? What is the point of existence? What is the purpose and meaning behind, you know, this whole universe and everything? And it just shows to you that even a couple minutes, or you know, a couple minutes alone can trigger such thoughts. And you know, those are the honest inquiries that face us as human beings, that we each have to respond to individually. No one can answer them for us. No community leader can answer it for us. No friend can answer for us. No parent can answer for us. No spouse. We have to face it individually, because whatever satisfies someone else does not necessitate that it's going to satisfy us. Whatever may satisfy, you know, my sister may not necessarily satisfy me, and vice versa. And so I'm faced with, you know, many, depending on how much I am left to my own devices, existential crises. And most of these are because I want to understand, and there is somehow this understanding that I can't always grasp with my fingers. And sometimes that can lead to a lot of despair, right? Even if like you think you know the answers, like things just seem very murky and confounded, and you feel the need for guidance, and maybe you even know, okay, like I'm supposed to get guidance from the Quran or from this halakha or these specific texts, but it can all seem very incomprehensible. And whether that is the Quran or whether it comes in the form of a friend, in the form of a person, whatever brings light to you in that sort of situation, whatever brings comprehension and meaning and clarity to you in that situation, is truly that person, that thing, whatever it is, becomes this sort of treasure for you. You're like, thank you so much, thank you so much for being there for me and illuminating for me and providing me the guidance that I needed, or the answers that I needed, the meaning that I was in need of. And it genuinely becomes a mercy and treasure for you. So that's how I'm understanding the treasury of the post-eternal favors of the Most Merciful. And the second phrase he continues is of the pre-eternal addresses, the Quran. Let me rewind from there. So the Quran is the treasury of the post-eternal favors of the Merciful, and the Quran is the treasury of the pre-eternal addresses of the Most Holy. I'm not quite sure how to make sense of this one, and I'm wondering also if there's a reason why the author is using saying the Most Holy, right? Why that specific quality? And of the timeless addresses of the Most Holy. I mean, the Quran is the communication, right? It is the communication of my Creator to me. It is an address. It is a timeless, eternal address from Him to me. In that sense, it is a treasury. Okay, yeah, I think that makes more sense. And I am the addressee, right? Whoever looks to the Quran is the addressee of the Quran, whether that's someone 1,000 years ago or me in my living room right now. And he says, which come from the world of the unseen, beyond the veil of this manifest world. So again, he's bringing out these two sort of categories, if you will, of the world of the unseen, which I had interpreted as being the world of meaningfulness, the world of that showcase meaning and qualities that all look to their source. The Quran is the sun, foundation, and plan of the spiritual world of Islam. Does anyone want to say something here? Because I don't have any cohesive thoughts right now. Brother Bikhan, please go ahead.
Jazakallah khairan. Is my voice any better now?
It's perfect, thank you.
Okay, I was, before I thought I was talking to mic, but it was plugged to another computer, not even the right computer. But anyway, Jazakallah khairan for beautiful discussions. Just one thing, maybe I like to add, is that he started with the miraculousness of the Quran, and then talk about what is Quran. He said there are some certain verses which are criticized, but we also, he says, we studied this in another part, and specifically these parts which are criticized are the part of the miraculousness of Quran, he says. And then he starts with what is Quran. So the question is, I guess, why he posed this question and why he's answering this. Obviously, he thinks that there's a misunderstanding of Quran, not only among atheists, the people who criticize, but also people who try to defend Quran, the people who are willingly reading the Quran, trying to follow it. There might be a misunderstanding, he says. And then he tried to explain the right the definition of Quran. He says, do you know what? Quran is the interpreter, translator of the mighty book of the universe. So everything you see in the universe will be in your life, as Ashanur said, will be encrypted. You will try to understand it. You will pretend from time to time you understand it, but you will know that it is there for you to be decrypted, to be opened. And Quran is there for you to make sense of your life, to make sense of your questions, human questions, and answer them. And then it doesn't end with this, like, of course, like at the background, this is the real purpose, giving you answers to your questions. But it will do this by revealing the treasures of the divine names hidden in the heavens and the earth. So it will teach you a new language. It will not, act like a guru or like a, a wise thinker and tell you how things are related to each other in your life. No, it will do it by teaching you a completely new language and telling you that, do you know what? You've been so far reading your life within the wrong language, using the wrong words, concepts. Now I will teach you the real words, divine names, what things refer to. This is what I'm going to teach you. And once you start learning this new language, language meaning, these divine names, then all these treasuries will open up in front of you. So for instance, when you see a bounty in front of you, food, for instance, you will read there, using your new language, a bounty giver. You will see there bounty giver. You will see there a food giver. And this will change things completely. Why? Before you were only interacting with food, which is scarce, which can, finish and quickly, especially if you are hungry, and leave you alone. Instead of food, which is temporary, transient, it will teach you food giver, which is absolute, which is not limited by time, and which is permanent. So things will change completely for you. Treasuries will be opening up in front of you. Tongue of the unseen world in the manifest world. By studying the manifest world, by looking at the manifest world, you will still walking on the earth, but you will be looking in the skies. So of course a metaphor. I'm not, suggesting astronomical investigations. But you will go beyond your immediate experiences. And you will know what they mean, what is the purpose, what are they telling you, even more than that. So what they mean, it's still something static, something, how to say, kind of external. But we care more about what they tell us and what they refer to. So for instance, if we have a signpost in front of us, yes, this signpost means something. So for instance, it says Philadelphia. You are on the road from New Jersey and trying to find some place which is nice, and you see a signpost, a traffic sign which says Philadelphia, 2 miles, go to the north, whatever. So you got the meaning. So it tells you about the Philadelphia, and you should go to 2 miles to the north. But even more important than that is Philadelphia itself. It's referring to Philadelphia. It's beyond the meaning. It's something that you live, right? You trying to reach Philadelphia, and here it will tell you, it will teach you what they mean, what they tell you, but even beyond that, it will show you what they refer to, what waits for you. So it will give you, for instance, a glimpse of heaven in your life. It's not just the meaning of the heaven, no, heaven that you can live. They will take you to the heaven. So anyway, it goes like that. And the last part that you mentioned, so only thing which comes to my mind, which is very limited, I'm sorry for that, the treasury of the post-eternal favors of the most merciful and of the pre-eternal addresses of the most holy. So most holy, it's the translation of Subhani. So Subhan, we say, which is doesn't lack anything, right? I don't know how to translate. Like it is free from any defect, free from any weakness, free from any anything that lacks. And this is an address is the hitab, like the speech, the address to you, which is addressed to you. So it says this Quran will tell you, will teach you how everything in your life is actually a speech and not an ordinary speech. It's a speech coming from the most holy. That it doesn't lack any mercy, it doesn't lack any knowledge, it doesn't lack any power. This is most holy, right? So when it tells you something, you can rely on it. When it gives you news of heaven, eternal life, the eternal peace, you can rely on it. It's all powerful, all knowing, all merciful. And this is what your life is. Whatever happens in your life, it is an address from of the most holy. You have a fight with your husband. It is an address of the most holy. You don't see a mercy there. You just had a fight. But in reality, it's an address of the most merciful one. It doesn't lack, he doesn't lack anything. Whatever you need, it is there for you. So this Quran will teach you about how to see reality, how to see universe within this language. And again, going back to very beginning, authors tells about all these things, all these definitions, because he thinks we're taking Quran in the wrong way, thus we cannot benefit from it. Thus, sometimes when we read some verses, we do not see the miraculousness of these verses. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much, Brother Birkan, for that beautiful comment and sharing. I think we can end it here today, inshallah. Thank you everyone for being here, for listening, for participating. And
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتح